Hey guys, welcome back to the Lou Perez podcast on the Lions of Liberty Podcast Network. And today I am joined by Kirk Wilcox. He makes political satire essays for YouTube, so go check him out. And you could also catch him on Twitch, where he streams as well. And this has been a date in the making. I've been wanting to get Kirk on for a while, and finally stars have aligned. And email is no longer going to spam, and we were able to make this happen. So, Kirk, I appreciate it. Thank you, dude.
And I'm honored to be the first show you're doing after former Piston Scot Pollard, which I noticed had his Pistons jersey behind him on your interview. So I'm like, I'm going to put my personalized Pistons jersey behind me. This could be a new Lou Perez thing. Right? It's just going to be nothing but Pistons fans and former Pistons players. We're turning this into a Pistons podcast now. We're taking over.
The first thing I was going to bring up was I was going to say, hey, Kirk, you know, it's so funny. You have a Pistons jersey up because you know who else, who was on my podcast? Scot Pollard. So I thought it was so organic at first. I thought it was just, oh, wow, incredible synchronicity. But no, Kirk's like, this is a total setup for that. But thank you. I appreciate that. And for those of you who haven't watched the episode, I got to interview Scot Pollard, who is a former, NBA player. He played over 10 seasons, which is really rare. I didn't know that at the time. He played 10 seasons in the NBA. He's 6'11", and he needed a heart transplant about a year and a half ago. And he's a big man, and it's really difficult to find a heart for people that size. So, fortunately he was, with the technology that we have today, they were able to find a heart that, is keeping this dude running. And, it was a really interesting, interview. I think, and he came off, I think he's like a really, great guy. And I got to talk to him, off camera. I think we're friends now. So, which is nice. Which is cool. Yeah, I'm like, whoa, like I have a successful friend. That's amazing. When's that gonna happen? But yeah, man. So I don't know when I first started following you, or we started, following each other, but I've been a fan of yours in that I count you as one of those people who do a really good job kind of cutting through bullshit and giving, just kind of like a straightforward explanation or take on what's happening in the world. And are you still in California, or do you want to be in parts unknown? Do you want people that not know where you are?
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Cool.
Been in Los Angeles for 12 years now. Yeah. I moved here from obviously the Detroit area. Back in 2013.
Yeah. And what brought you out to LA? Were you a young ingenue just looking to make it in Hollywood, or what was that? Yeah.
I mean, I was an aspiring stand-up comedian. I visited some friends who lived out here and immediately fell in love with the place. And I was like, I'm going to move to Los Angeles to really pursue stand-up comedy, go all in on it. And and then about 8 years later, I'm like, maybe I should focus more on YouTube and Twitch. And that's what I've been doing for like the last 4 years. I don't really do stand up much anymore, but people have been trying to get me back into it. I don't know what it is. I guess I was good, maybe. So who knows?
I know.
But I think it maybe, I don't know if it was politics or comedy, because I feel like there's a lot of overlap. Maybe there's a lot of overlap there in the because didn't you used to be into stand up, right?
Yeah. Still, I still do it. Still do stand up. So I just,
nice.
I was on tour for a few months with Scott Thompson from the Kids in the Hall. I was opening for him.
Oh, nice.
And and I got some, some gigs coming up. I'll be opening for Jimmy Dore. He has a show August 23rd at the Williams Center in Rutherford, New Jersey. So I'm opening for him, which I'm excited about. And and actually tomorrow, I have a call scheduled with my good friend Boris Hyken, and we're going to be discussing recording our first hours together. So I'm trying to plan that and make that official. So it's still happening for sure. It is something though with stand up. if I haven't done it for a couple of weeks, I start questioning if I'm still technically a stand-up comic, you know, like, does that count? You know, if I haven't gotten up in a while. So.
Yeah. But you also got, I think you're still in it. It sounds like you're just doing all of, because I know you did the Internet TV stuff where that was more like political sketches and whatnot.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm interviewing you now. This is funny.
Oh, it's fine. Oh no, it's fine. If the more work you want to take on, I'm all for that. But yeah. I have a history and a resume very much so in like the political satire kind of genre, and it's something I didn't necessarily look to get into. It was just something. It was kind of, the year was 2015, and I had this opportunity to kind of fuse together sketch comedy and politics, and at that time, and I guess, still, I'm a libertarian. So it automatically kind of gave me a different perspective on politics than a lot of like the people that I knew who were doing commentary or comedy. And yeah, so shit, we turn around. It's like, fucking decade of doing this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, yeah. And I guess on that note, one of the things, I'd like to hear what your thoughts are is, Marc Maron. Marc Maron's been doing he's been making appearances all over the place, talking about, I guess, like the state of politics and comedy. And I was wondering if you had a take on it, because it seems like he's kind of all over the place. I'm not all over the place, meaning commenting all over the place, but I've been seeing a lot of clips being shared of him and his commentary. And what do you think's happening?
Yeah, I think I've like loosely heard about that, but I haven't really dove deep in like what Maron's been saying lately. I know, like, hasn't he been kind of criticizing like the Joe Rogan area or whatever of the comedy world, and like that whole thing, whatever it's called?
Yeah, he's definitely been talking about that. Yeah, kind of like one of the things he's been talking about is like the anti-woke comedy sphere and how that's kind of hack now. And one of the examples that he gave was, when he goes to like the comedy store, and just like hearing somebody doing like on stage doing a bit about trans people, and then other people thinking that they need to do a bit about trans people, and how either the subject itself has become hack, or the material about it has become hack. But it's his position that a lot of the anti-woke comedians are now hack. And I thought when I was listening to him talk about that, I think it was on the Howie Mandel podcast, what I found interesting was there was a clip that recently came out from, I guess, Marc Maron's new special, where he's doing a bit about Theo Von interviewing Hitler. And the obvious parallel there is Theo Von had Donald Trump on and talked to him like he was a real person. There was kind of a humanizing element to it. I remember one of the things that they had talked about was Trump's brother being an alcoholic. And and at the time I remember watching like, wow, this is really interesting, because I've never seen Donald Trump open up like a human, and talk about something like that. But anyway,
yeah, it's kind of like, not to bring this back to the Internet, but whatever sketch you did was like, oh, a stand-up comedian. This is like during Trump's first term. It's like he really takes it to Donald Trump, and his whole stand-up is like Trump. So like, is that like how the so-called like anti-woke comedy crowd? It's like all they talk about is woke. Like, do you think it's gotten to that point?
What I was first going to say is you had Marc Maron accusing the anti-woke comedians of being hack, but yet Marc Maron did a bit about Theo Von interviewing Hitler. And it's like, well, yeah, who hasn't made the comparison of Donald Trump to Hitler? So it's like, here you are exercising your own hacky material while at the same time calling out other hack comedians. When was the Theo Von bit he did? Is this like within the last few weeks? Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think he has a new special out, and it's a part of that. And look, and
Okay.
as a stand-up comic who is actively planning to shoot his first special, I will totally be humble and say, stand-up comedy is tough, and it's tough to come up with
Oh yeah.
material and to do it well. But I just
And a lot of
find
that stuff you probably work on for years and stuff. And so like by the time like you finally get into it, I don't want to say like it's kind of old, but it might be a little dated. And see, where I was going with the Marc Maron thing was like, isn't that literally a thing that Larry David did a few months ago with when Bill Maher went to have dinner with Trump and he gave a story, and then Larry David wrote a thing in the New York Times about how he had like dinner with Hitler or something.
Yeah, I mean everybody is has compared Trump to Hitler, and the video that you were talking about was a character that I did called Doug Allen, and it's it's a trailer for Doug Allen's special where it's like we're the way that we're playing it is that he's the only comedian with the balls to make fun of Donald Trump. And in his special called Edgy, basically every joke is an anti-Donald Trump joke. And, that was made, fuck, man, how many years? I think maybe 8 years ago, maybe more. So even at the time, it was like, at the time it was already hack comparing Donald Trump to Hitler. And I mean, at this point, I really wish that people would, aren't there so many different fascists that you could compare him to?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. Why not, compare him to the OG, Il Duce, Mussolini or something like that. Like, how are they similar? So.
Or I think I've heard it before. Someone said that the Hitler comparison is probably too far, and it's probably, I would have to look into this, but probably more accurate to compare him to one of the more one of the dictators from Latin America, where like the policies he's doing isn't like leading to like world wars or like Holocaust or whatever, but like slowly pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable in a constitutional republic and nakedly trading favors with businessmen and all that kind of stuff. And
I mean, I definitely can see how hackiness can kind of I don't know, take over on any side of the political aisle. I mean, there are still people talking about I identify as an Apache helicopter, or do they tell you their pronouns, et cetera. And it's like, okay, that's that's some hacky stuff. Let's find some new stuff. But the idea that somehow a quote unquote anti-woke comedians as a group equals hack, I think bullshit, because I mean the reality is that there are still elements of quote unquote wokeness in the popular culture, and also in in the quote unquote system that is worth pointing out, and mockery. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Well, yeah, and I remember this kind of the thing that the last 2 episodes of South Park have really went hard at Trump and his administration, and I think it's been hilarious. But some of the defense against Trump from that crowd has been like, "Oh yeah, because no one's made fun of Trump before." It's like, yeah, I get maybe the culture. Comedy was maybe oversaturated with Trump content, but you got to give it to South Park. They've done at least I think their last 2 episodes have had me rolling with the way they've tackled Trump and Kirsty Noem and JD Vance.
Yeah, I haven't watched South Park in a while, but yeah, I do always find it funny how personal people will take the jokes about either against Trump or against Trump's enemies, and it comes down to what kind of which side of the aisle you're on. But yeah, I mean, that is to say, like there are fresh jokes out there that can be made about Donald Trump, and I think it's about holding yourself to a if you're a comedian, you want to hold yourself to a to I think a higher standard. Because one of the things I talked about in my book that I wrote is, comedy. The way comedy is today, if you're a professional comedian, you're not just competing against other professional comedians. You're competing against, regular people who have, Twitter accounts or social media accounts, who make memes, who are able to make their own YouTube videos and are able to, beat you to what a bit that you could have done, in a different time. Like say 20 years ago, you could have had a bit that you could have been one of 1,000 people who have this bit, but you're the only one who's able to use it because you have a platform. You're able to get up on stage and do it. So, it's definitely tougher now when you are competing with, so many people for funniness. And what often I think happens too, depending on what comedian you are. I mean, there are often a lot funnier people who have like no interest in comedy. And they just put funny shit out. Like, I don't know if you follow Jarvis Best on Twitter, but Jarvis is really fucking funny. And I don't know what Jarvis does for a living. I think he might be a lawyer. But he could very well just be a comedian in disguise that nobody knows, nobody knows his true identity, but he's a good fan.
Yeah. The account sounds familiar, but, I'm not sure if I follow, maybe I'll follow him now.
Go for it. That would be a good one. I recommend that highly. And one of the things I want to talk about, so you moved from Detroit to California. You were gonna, come out to do stand up, and what was it like a culture shock? Moving from Detroit to LA, because I moved from New York to LA, and I remember I was in LA for I forget how many years, and then it was like I would come back to New York and be a little freaked out by the pace. And I didn't think that would ever happen to me. Like, damn, man, like I'm in Manhattan, everybody's moving so fast, and I'm the only one wearing flip-flops. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, it totally was. It was like incredible. By the way, I moved from the Detroit area. I'm from the suburbs, and a lot of people get a little picky, but like, you're not from the streets and you're not tough and blah, blah, like, so I do try to be careful with that. I grew up in the suburbs, but Detroit area. Moved to it wasn't moved, but it was when I visited. It's like, you move from the Detroit area where there's like, it's just completely flat land. The sky is gray for like 6 months out of the year. Unless you are in the Detroit area, there's not really a big city vibe. You don't like see skyscrapers all over the place. And then you come to Hollywood, and there's just like mountains with all these mansions like it's like something out of a cartoon. Like it was hard for my mind to cut, because even on TV you don't really get a glimpse of LA from that sort of perspective. You just get like, pockets and scenes here and there and stuff. So yeah, there was a definite culture shock. And I mean, even then it was, you'd walk down the street and you'd see like a mattress just on the sidewalk outside of a 7-Eleven or whatever. It's like, you never see that. And like, even then that was like better, like what Hollywood is today with that, with the way homelessness has gotten a little out of control in Los Angeles. Although I think it's gotten better over the last few years, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, there was definitely a culture shock. And one of the things I really like about Los Angeles when I first moved here was like, yeah, there's just a lot of stuff happening. It's like a massive area, and yeah, just a lot of people, a lot of stuff, and really exciting stuff.
Yeah, when I started kind of going back and forth with my sketch group. It's like during like kind of after college, the Hammer Cats was the sketch group, and then my duo Greg and Lou. So we would go back and forth between basically the two UCB theaters and perform our shows and stuff. And when I started kind of spending more time out in LA, I was staying at a house in Echo Park, and yeah, the constant appearance of mattresses on the sidewalk, and it was like at one point I was thinking, is this the same mattress that is just moving around? You know, just moving to like a more comfortable street. Like like it's looking for a better home. But yeah, I made sure never to mess with that. Whatsoever.
You know what I didn't see then? I did not see a tent back in 2013. And now you can't, like, you would be lucky if you drove through Hollywood today and didn't see any tents. That was but then like other little things, like I remember when my buddy picked me up from the airport, we're driving back to his place, like the way he drove, I'm just like I was like, God, we're gonna get into an accident. It's like, no, you just have to be really aggressive when you drive in LA. And I remember like one of the after I moved to LA and then I visited the Detroit area. One thing I noticed was like it's really quiet in the suburbs of Detroit. Like at night, like you don't hear like a lot of noise, traffic, or whatever, and you're like, it's kind of quiet out here.
I have a friend of mine who's in showbiz, and one of the things that she said was like LA is kind of becoming Detroit in that, you know, you have like a city that's kind of built around this one industry, you know, show business, and there's fewer and fewer like shoots happening. A lot of people are going to like states like Georgia to shoot or Canada to shoot. It was interesting because I had never heard like LA ever compared to Detroit. You know, so it's like between that and you talking about how, yeah, you were from outside of Detroit and then you moved to LA. It's the first time that I'm hearing about. What you know, have you noticed, you know, like in your own, you know, position, like from your own perspective, like the changes happening in LA, like when it comes to like, you know, either, you know, show business or otherwise?
Well, no, I don't know if I could like speak too much on that other than the fact that I'm from Detroit. And I remember in the late 2000s throughout the 2010s, like Detroit and the state of Michigan in general, a lot more film projects because of tax incentives. So I think that's been a trend for about 10 to 20 years now. And I know Georgia has been a huge tax haven for productions. New Mexico notoriously got projects like the Thor movies and Breaking Bad, and Canada. So like it sounds like this is growing, but I think when it comes to Hollywood, LA still has all the big movie studios throughout Burbank, which I don't know are cheap to really relocate and whatnot. And you still got a lot of celebrities, especially actors, who still want to live here. So I imagine I could, but I imagine the entertainment industry will still have a stronghold in Los Angeles.
Yeah. What's it like being a normal person in LA? Because when I was out there, I mean, I think I was kind of normal in that. I mean, I wasn't being invited to like parties in the Hollywood Hills and stuff. And I'm unlike Scot Pollard, who was being invited to, you know, to interesting parties and a lot more fun parties than me. I mean, I was at open mics and trying to do as many shows as I could. You know, I was driving out to like Riverside to do bar shows because I would, you know, be able to do 15 minutes and, you know, maybe get money for like car, you know, for gas. But my wife, my girlfriend at the time, same person. I'm not in one of those relationships. She came out and to live with me, and she did like yoga training to be able to teach yoga, and she teaches Pilates and stuff. So she had a very interesting kind of perspective of Los Angeles, as she's not in show business, she's not in entertainment, but she has clients who are in entertainment. So some of them were, you know, bigger named, you know, well-known people that, you know, are in movies or in TV shows. And then other people who are like, I guess, influencers who are trying to climb the ladder by, through Instagram and whatnot. So it was, I don't know how like just normal people kind of exist in LA, if that's kind of like the world that's around you, you know?
Yeah, I'm just me. So, and I'd imagine I'm more of a normal person than like a celebrity here, obviously. But, just try to live my life. I don't know what else to say. Like, what is it? What it's like? I just go to the grocery store. I mean, what I'm drinking now, I'm drinking this.
Yeah, what is that?
This is a cup that
That's
I got.
gigantic.
This is a cup.
Jeez.
Yeah, this is from a Breeze Daiquiri bar from Las Vegas. I probably got a decade ago. This is like one of my more minimalist tendencies. Is I just kind of collect cups and don't really buy like fine glassware or whatever. And I'm drinking Kroger brand seltzer water. I'm on that thing now. I think that's a growing trend. Is like the sparkling waters. It's a really good way to really phase out of diet soda. Although I still drink an ungodly amount of diet soda, but yeah, lately over the last year or so, I've been increasingly drinking. And yeah, I buy Kroger brand stuff, a lot of off-brand stuff. So, and then yeah, I just try to. That's one of the better parts about living in LA is there's always stuff to do. Went to work tour a couple weeks ago. Going to Universal Horror Night next month. I mean, there's a lot of different sports teams. We have 2 NBA teams. So like, even though I'm not living in Detroit and I'm a huge Pistons fan, I got 2 times to see them because they come and play the Clippers. They come and play the Lakers. Even Anaheim has teams. So I've had multiple opportunities to go see the Detroit Tigers play this year. A lot of WWE events. They just did a PLE in LA a few months ago. They're doing one in San Diego this coming November. They did WrestleMania in Las Vegas, which is only a 3 to 5 hour drive depending on traffic. So it's just always a lot of fun stuff to do here in Los Angeles. You know, they say like the big downsides of living in Los Angeles is the sky high cost of living. And it's a big freaking problem, let me tell you. And I think one thing that people might not talk about is the reason why people probably go broke living in LA. Not that I'm going broke, but it's just there's so much stuff to do that you end up spending a lot of money on just having a little too much fun, I guess.
You know, I think you're one hell of an ambassador for the city of Los Angeles. I mean, you just sold it right there. For one, everyone's checking their calendars right now and seeing, hey, what are they, what are their dates looking like for all the fun stuff?
My car did broke into last month, and someone tried to hotwire it and take off with it. Fortunately, they were unsuccessful, but it essentially rendered my car a salvage. So I had to eventually trade it in for cents on the dollar. And so that's a problem. Crime is, I imagine, a bigger problem in places like LA than most of the country. But we did elect a tough on crime Republican district attorney last year. So hopefully that's going to start to get cleaned up. But yeah, that's one of the downsides, sky high cost of living. And yeah, you got to deal with crime, and it's more than an inconvenience.
Did you say you went to Warped Tour?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So that's back. They're back doing that.
Yeah, it's funny because my girlfriend hooked me up with a free ticket. She wanted me to go with her, and it's weird how things play out because I'm not that into the Warped Tour, and I was supposed to go when I was 15, I think, because D12, which was Eminem's band, was on the Warped Tour back in 2001, I think. And like 2 weeks before they came to Detroit, they got kicked off the tour because they were feuding with another rapper named Isham. And so I'm like, all right, well, now I have no interest in the Warped Tour. So, but I like had gotten tickets for my birthday and just decided to not go to the Warped Tour, which I probably should have just ended up going anyway. But I'm like, I don't really care for the other bands. I just wanted to see D12. And then it played it long term. I eventually got a free ticket to go to Warped Tour, and it was pretty fun.
Wow, man. Yeah, that takes me back. I mean, I went to Warped Tour. I don't know, it was middle school and high school. I think that's the last time I was there. It was funny. The I don't know what year it was, but Eminem, I guess, had just come out with I guess like his first album, and
yeah.
I don't know if we booed him off stage, but but the whole crowd was definitely booing him. Like he didn't do too well in front of I think we were at Randall's Island in New York. But yeah, I'm just thinking about, damn, like all those bands. Now, are they all the bands on Warped Tour? Are there like newer bands, like younger bands, or is everybody in their like their 40s and 50s playing, punk and, ska and shit?
Yeah, I think it was more so the latter. I wasn't familiar with a lot of the bands, but like between their songs, off on the spiels are like, yeah, we remember playing Warped Tour back in the 1990s, and now we're all in our 40s and 50s. Like they literally just what you said.
Were there mosh pits? I mean, what do mosh pits look like, for guys in their 40s and and 50s?
Yeah, last year summer, I went to a Limp Bizkit concert. And all right, I'm going to get into a mosh pit. And like every time I got in, I immediately just get thrown out. I'm like, yeah, I think my mosh pitting days. I was never that big of a mosher to begin with, but I don't think I can handle them as a man in my late 30s now.
Well, which band stood out? Yeah.
CKY, because that's the only band I was really that interested in seeing. And the only reason, and they acknowledged this when they went on, was like they only have like one memorable song, and it's from one of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games. And so, that was the one that stood out for me, CKY.
What's the song?
But yeah, usually when whenever I'd see a mosh pit, I'd be like, all right, step back. I don't want any part of this. I was scarred from Limp Bizkit last year, but I think their song is 96 Bitter Other Things. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, man, this is probably like 10 years ago, maybe more. I went to go see, there's a band called Helmet, and they had was it the 20th anniversary of their album Betty. And I went to, the show, and they were going to play their whole album, like from start to finish. And everyone there was like a dude in his 30s or a dude in his 40s. There were like hardly any women. All the guys were kind of dressed the same. It was like jeans, boots, flannel. And Helmet is like a metal band. And there was a mosh pit. There wasn't the stupid like people like throwing punches and stuff. There was just a lot of pushing and whatnot. And then I witnessed something that was so sad, which was a group of guys trying to get one dude up to crowd surf, and they couldn't do it. They had failed to get this guy up to crowd surf, and it was sort of like, oh, that's when you're really grown up, is when you can't do that. And there wasn't somebody like, I guess, young enough or tiny enough who could just get all these guys around them to like throw them up into crowd surf. And that was sad. And the lead singer, Paige Hamilton, said something that didn't sit well with me, where at some point he commented, and he's like, oh, how many of you here because like you listened to us when you were 12? And it's like, yeah, man, that's me. Like, there's no other reason I would ever be at a fucking Helmet concert. The only reason why I'm here is because when I was 12 years old, I really liked you guys, and I had your shirt, I had maybe a hat, and I love the album Betty. So yeah, Paige, why don't you just be happy that I'm fucking here?
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're coming back in town, but I'm older now. I'm grayer, and maybe I'm the type of guy who could actually make it into the crowd surfing. I can make it to the top. Who knows?
Give it a shot, man. What do you have to lose?
My dignity.
Maybe a hip and a few $1,000s on a hospital bill.
Yeah. What's bothering me right now? I'm wearing a black shirt, and there's some little schmutz, a little bit of white something there that I'm not feeling it. Kirk, your Pistons jersey. Who is that? Who do you got?
That's me. It's a personalized jersey. It's a personalized jersey with my name on it. And I feel bad because I recently got a Tigers one, and I chose the same number as a guy named Milt Wilcox, who was on the 1984 World Series championship team. And it's also, his number is 39, and it was a birthday gift to myself for my 39th birthday. But then I didn't do the same thing with Chris Wilcox, who played for the Pistons back in, I think, in like 2012. And I'm like, I should have taken Chris Wilcox's number. Then I could have But then again, he never played in the teal jersey, so it wouldn't have made sense anyway.
There's some deep cuts. Have you ever worn that jersey out and someone came up to you and was like, "Hey man, you were my favorite player"?
No, but it's funny at Warped Tour. Going back to Warped Tour, I saw someone in a same jersey but with the name Smith on it, and I'm like, who would have played for the Pistons during the teal era with Smith? I'm like, oh, it must have been Joe Smith. So I went up to him. I'm like, are you telling me you really have a Joe Smith Pistons jersey? And he's like, no, this is a personalized jersey, but good call. I wasn't expecting some random person to know that Joe Smith played half a season with the Pistons back in 2001, I think.
Yeah. Personalized jerseys. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I think I did that like with like hockey jerseys. Like I played ice hockey as a youngster. I did, and I think it seemed like that was, kind of socially acceptable. Is it tougher as an adult to have personalized jerseys? Are people like, what are you doing, kid? Old kid?
I have no experience with that. And one of my favorite things about getting a personalized jersey is that you don't have to worry about the player. Like if I were to get like a Cade Cunningham jersey, he's the star on the Pistons right now. Like if I got his jersey and then he left via free agency or got traded, then it's like, well, now this jersey's kind of worthless. Now I got to get the next guy's jersey, and I don't want to get into that habit.
Oh, wow. So it's sort of, yeah. So then you'd be like, wow, this guy's really living in the past. Like, holy shit.
And
this
then
guy's
if I'm getting Cade Cunningham is like half my age at this point. Like, isn't that weird wearing a dude's jersey who's half my age? I don't know. I don't feel right about that either. So
wait. Is this like, is it like the Leonardo DiCaprio of, of basketball fans, where it's like, man, he only wears jerseys like of dudes who are like 23 and under. Like once you hit 25, he has no desire whatsoever to wear your jersey.
Yeah, disgusting. Yeah, don't give me that LeBron James jersey. I want that Bronny James jersey.
Well, do you have like a favorite era of Pistons? I mean, it's got to be Isaiah and Lambeer, right?
No, that was a little before
really?
my time. No, definitely the Ben Wallace going to work Pistons. That was like right. That's by far maybe my favorite era of like any sports team ever. Do you know the story about the 04 Pistons?
No, not at all. Hit me with it.
So that team didn't have any superstar players, like no like I don't want to say Hall of Fame, but like MVP like most championship teams that have won since the ABA merger have had like some sort of MVP caliber. They've either had a future or a former MVP player on their team, like LeBron or Hakeem Olajuwon or Shaq or Michael Jordan or Tim Duncan. And I think there are like 4 or 5 exceptions to this. One of them is like Kawhi Leonard, and even though he never won the MVP, he was pretty close in a couple years. The bad boy Pistons, but Isaiah Thomas was pretty close to being an MVP caliber player a couple of years during his career. The 04 Pistons did not have like any like player on that level. They were just a collection of like kind of borderline all-star caliber players that just really gelled together, and they're considered like the one team to win an NBA championship without a superstar. And like as they were coming together, like their whole mantra was going to work, and they would do like these montages of like them wearing hard hats and working in a steel mill because it like matched Detroit's whole persona of blue collar worker, and they just won by defense and toughness and out hustle and whatnot. And then they eventually assembled a collection of players that became a title contender, and then they ended up beating the LA Lakers, who had Shaq and Kobe and Karl Malone and Gary Payton, coached by Phil Jackson, and it's considered one of the biggest upsets in history. And they almost won more championships after that. It was that was a lot of fun being a Piston.
Wait, Karl Malone and Gary Payton played on the Lakers?
One year they played on the Lakers. They were kind of like in the twilight of their careers, but still pretty good. And they were ring chasing that year. And everyone thought, especially when they were matched up against the Pistons and a bunch of nobodies, everyone's like, oh, the Lakers are going to run over the Pistons. And it was the opposite. They got their asses handed to them.
Wow. And so did the Pistons win the championship that year?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
04 champions. Yeah.
I am so I know so little about basketball. I like hearing that story. I like that. I wonder if there were any, people in Detroit though who were like, "Hey, you know what? I really like you guys as basketball players, but I actually do work in a factory, and I don't appreciate you wearing hard hats and stuff."
Yeah, they
like some like
culturally
appropriation. Yeah, it's like, come on, guys. You're fucking 6'11". And I'm a 5'8" guy who's just trying to make it, and without my back blowing out.
It's crazy. Living in LA, Lakers fans, once they find out I'm a Pistons fan, they are so friendly. They're like, "Oh my God, the Pistons! Oh, I remember the Bad Boys and Ben Wallace and Chauncey Billups. Oh my God, you guys had some great teams." Lakers fans are some of the most respectable sports fans I've ever come across.
Wow. Well, that's good to know. I mean, that's a good way to get out of a fight, right? Like, "Hey, man, I'm a Pistons fan. I'm a Pistons fan."
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, well, thank."
You whooped our asses, but you guys deserved it.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the show Mayor of Kingstown? Have you ever seen that?
No.
I think it's supposed to take place in, I think, kind of like a fictionalized Detroit or outside Detroit, or it's in Michigan. I don't know. That would have been a waste of time to talk to you about that. I don't remember a lot about the show. I know Jeremy Renner's in it, and he's good. He's pretty good at it. Plays a very tough guy. What are you like concerned about, worried about in being in LA? Do you see the things changing there for the good, for the better? I mean, you guys dealt with. You guys got hit with you had COVID, so that was a tough time, and then the fires. That's a tough time.
The fires were crazy.
Yeah, like what's what's next? Not saying like there's like a plague coming or another plague coming, but it's kind of like what's most concerning. You're talking about all the tents. Is homelessness going to be going away? What do you think?
I don't think it's going to go away completely. But from what I can tell, I think like the whole tent phenomenon, it sort of peaked between like 2019 and 2022. And over the last few years, I think we've just seen less and less of them. I think if you still go to like, especially Skid Row and parts of Hollywood, you'll still see them all over the place. But I remember in the area I live in, like I remember for a minute you started to see tents here and there, and then slowly they went away, and you don't really see them as much anymore. But yeah, the fires really concerned me because a lot of expensive houses got burned to the ground. It's already difficult, if not impossible, in the state of California and big cities like LA to get anything approved through the bureaucratic mess. And that's always been a nightmare. It's a huge reason why there's a housing shortage. And one of the things that scared me was like, well, if they don't get these houses built right away, and the people who lived in these houses were high rollers to begin with, what impact would that have on the housing market throughout LA? I don't know if it's had a significant impact on stuff like rental pricing as of yet, but I mean, it's just that was only like 8 months ago. And occasionally I'll see like some story or headline about how the ball rolling on getting all the stuff rebuilt is moving very, very, very slowly, even though Mayor Karen Bass and Governor Gavin Newsom said, we're not going to let red tape get in the way, but it looks like it's getting in the way. And on top of that, in general, there's been like blue collar labor shortages throughout California. I don't think the immigration restrictions are going to help on that front. The trade wars that the Trump administration is engaging in is probably not going to help on that front if you need to import large sums of stuff like steel and lumber and concretes. If that's all getting jammed up through, tariff one day, 90-day pause the next day, who knows what these things are going to cost. It just sounds like the perfect storm of crazy left-wing policies at the local and state level in California that makes it difficult and expensive to rebuild stuff. And then you got stuff at the federal level, like restrictions on immigration and imports, that is probably going to make things even more difficult. So,
Yeah, I have my friend Matt Himes, who was a guest on the podcast. He's an editor at the Blaze, which unfortunate name because his house burnt down. But he wrote a great piece in the New York Post about about everything that his family's going through. And he was was talking to him, and it's like, if all things go well, I think they're looking at like close to 2 years before their home is rebuilt. 2 years. And it's kind of like, it reminded me of when I moved out of New York, kind of during COVID. It was like 2021. And, at the time, my wife and I were kind of looking around at the city, at all the changes that we had really, that we had lived through. Just a complete change in, like, not only a complete change in just like the vibe and our feelings towards like our neighbors and our neighborhood and stuff. And thinking about, how long would it take to, rebuild, because of all these businesses that had just gone out of business, all these places that we really enjoyed that were no longer there. It was no longer the same. And we had a baby and another one on the way. And it was just like, well, say it takes 5 years, to get back to where it once was and where we loved. It's like, that's 5 years that we're sacrificing like our kids to be in this environment that we don't like. So let's get out of here. So now we have to get out of there. And I think California is probably dealing with a similar thing. Like, okay, if we rebuild, it's going to take this long, and who else is going to be rebuilding? Like, are the restaurants that we loved going to be rebuilt? Are the other neighbors who we, grew to love, are they sticking around to rebuild, or are they jumping ship? And it's just, I feel like with the void that the fire left, there's so many unanswered questions. It's like, where are things going to go from here?
Absolutely. It's probably something I need to look more into to see how things are getting a rolling on the rebuild efforts, because yeah.
Well, my family, we were just in Halifax, Canada over the weekend. And basically how it happened was my wife and I were celebrating our 7-year wedding anniversary. And we had booked tickets to Halifax because we like to go and like, oh, we've never been there. It sounds like an interesting place. We like lobster. And we thought that my mother-in-law was going to be able to watch the kids. And it turns out the calendar was all screwed up. And so it was like, okay, so rather than like eat the $400 for the plane tickets, it's like, okay, we're bringing the kids. So we brought our kids to Halifax. And we stayed in Peggy's Cove, which was really beautiful. If you haven't been there before, I highly recommend it. Just from a kind of like a nature spot. But right before we were getting ready to go, I got a text from a friend who told me, yeah, there's hiking is illegal now in Halifax. So if you had any plans to hike, you were no longer going to be allowed to do that. You would be fined something like $25,000 for hiking out of fear of, I guess, fire starting. Right. So, it was one of those things where, I understand how destructive fire can be, but I think there must be some between the spectrum of walking in the forest on a hike and burning shit in the forest. There's a lot of room there for, to work with, like we could very well walk on a path and get off without, any risk of setting a fire, I think.
I will say it looks like there's been this effort, and I think it's starting to move in a positive direction, especially amongst left-leaning activist types and Democrats, is the Yes in My Backyard movement. We're seeing this with books like Abundance that was written by Ezra Klein. I've only gotten a few chapters into it, and there are some disagreements I have with Klein. But it looks like a lot of people on the left are starting to wake up to the fact that, like, yeah, a lot of a lot of left-wing policies that maybe sounded good 30, 40, 50 years ago, probably having a bad impact on the housing supply and the housing market. This makes it difficult for a lot of constituencies that the left claims to champion, like the poor and the working class. Makes it a lot harder for them to buy a home, own a home. Makes it harder for them to get jobs if construction jobs are not coming into fruition because projects are getting denied or held up in court by some not in my backyard activist group or some left-wing environmentalist activist group like the Sierra Club. And we really need to start rethinking about a lot of these things. And even Gavin Newsom, who I'm definitely not a fan of, I think he just passed some sort of reform on the California Environmental Quality Act, which is one of the big reasons why it's difficult to build anything in California. It looks like they've made reform on that front. So I wonder if we're starting to see improvements on the political front in places like California. And I think it should really start here in places like California and Washington State, where they become more of a pro-building, or as Ezra Klein would say, an abundance agenda that, gets more stuff built and makes everything more affordable.
I think Gavin Newsom is the type of guy who would get a personalized jersey, Laker jersey. He would have Newsom in the back, but I think he would be doing it for a different reason than you, Kirk. The talk about abundance and sort of left-leaning or leftist, rethinking policy. It reminds me, I just finished reading the graphic novel, The Forgotten Man, which is about basically like the New Deal. Amy Shlaes, is that how you pronounce her name? I don't know. Yeah, it's a graphic novel. It takes place during the time of the New Deal, and one of the things kind of learning, going through school. FDR is kind of always like kind of held up as like a hero, like the man who got people through like the Depression and all that. And the Forgotten Man, they do this really cool thing, whereas as they mark time, like, this is, March of, 1934 or whatever, they show what the unemployment rate was, and also like what the, where the stock market was at the time. And unemployment was kind of, it was as high, I think at one point it was like 25% or something like that, which is insane. But it didn't seem to get much lower than like 13% or something like that. So you had like this consistent, unemployment. And while at the same time, all of these, New Deal fiascos going into play. So like some of the things I didn't know about was there was a time where FDR sent government officials house to house to confiscate gold, to come and take gold from citizens. It's like that happened, and it blew me away. Maybe I'm like freaking naive, but like, holy shit! Can you imagine like them, coming around? And I don't know if they have like a version of like, like pigs will sniff out truffles. If there's like a gold dude who could just sniff out wherever you're hiding your fucking gold, insane. And then all the, and then you have like all these policies too, with, trying to, minimum wage laws. And there was a case that I believe it was the Schechter brothers, which were like a kosher chicken store. And there were new rules as far as like how chickens could be selected and stuff. And it was like the customer was no longer allowed to pick the chicken that they wanted, and just all this insane stuff, this micromanaging from the federal level onto like the local level, and it didn't work, and it made things really worse. And and I'm sorry if I'm like I just read it, so I just kind of want to get it out there. But there was a time where farms weren't doing so well. And people were hurting. So what we're going to do? We want to slaughter 1 million pigs. Yeah. Slaughter them and throw them out. That way the price of pork would rise. And it's like, wait, but why not just let the price of pork be whatever the price of pork is, and people are fed? And if they can buy cheap pork, well, then they're able to eat cheap pork and, cheaper wheat and whatnot. And it's just really wild just to look back at like, damn, man, the attempts by, the powers that be to enact their will in places that, not only does it not make sense, but it's going to make the problem way worse,
Oh, yeah. And you didn't even mention the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II.
I was a huge fan of that. I thought that was great. Big fan over here, Kirk. Actually, that's what on the back of my jerseys, I write internment. That's my personal. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And then what was I think there's a book called Color of Law written by Richard Rothstein that talks about how a lot of FDR's economic agenda, they had to compromise with the segregationist Democrats of the South to get it passed, which ultimately led to a lot of the redlining and really made it difficult, if not impossible, for Black Americans to own homes for decades. And yeah, a lot of, I think Burton Folsom and Lawrence Reed have both written a lot about this, and George Selgin, I think, has written a lot about this, and I think he just put out a new book that I have yet to read because it just came out a few weeks or a few months ago. But a lot of the New Deal policies, when they were enacted at the time, they made things worse and then had to be repealed. But what most people remembered is stuff like Social Security and the federalization of minimum wage, as you mentioned, which at the time caused a lot of problems. And I think another FDIC was another big one, which would end up creating a lot of problems long term. And the Wagner Act, which gave political power to unions. That's kind of the more lasting stuff that's more popular today. But you don't hear about what you said, like the paying of farmers to slaughter pigs so that they could raise the price of pork, which was just insanity.
Yeah. And what I find interesting too is in the discussions about FDR, one of the things that when you talk about Democrats and Republicans is we often hear about, I guess in the 60s where you had did they call it the flip or the big reversal where it's all these racist
big switch.
The big switch, yeah. All these racist Southern Democrats became Republicans, right? And it's well, before the switch, there was FDR. So the idea that you're kind of praising this guy who, technically, according, to that timeline, should not be praiseworthy. I just find interesting.
But yeah, no, a big popular notion with FDR is Herbert Hoover and the Republicans, they were a bunch of hands-on, which is also a lie. Herbert Hoover was a very hands-on, trying to be economic planner that screwed up the economy. But the narrative is Herbert Hoover and the Republicans, they were hands off the economy, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and that led to the Great Depression and the stock market crash and all of that. And it was FDR and his brilliant economic planning that rescued the economy. And all of that's just a bunch of chicanery.
Yeah. Well, Kirk, I want everyone to I hope they all enjoyed this chicanery that we just did. I've enjoyed talking to you. I'm glad that we finally were able to make it happen. And once again, Kirk Wilcox, he does political satire videos on YouTube and he streams on Twitch. And you follow him everywhere they carry Kirk Wilcox. And if you want to go get a jersey and put Wilcox on the back of that jersey, then you have a story to tell people. You're well, actually, this isn't a basketball player at all. This is my favorite Wilcox from the online world. So.